Welcome to this episode of the Structural Engineering Channel, a podcast focused on helping structural engineering professionals stay up to date on technical trends in the field and to help them succeed in their careers and lives. Have you ever wondered what it takes to inspire the next generation of engineers? Today, Matt and I are speaking with Bill Woodburn, founder and chairman of the board at Engineering Tomorrow. And we're going to talk to him about the creation and impact of Engineering Tomorrow. We're also going to discuss the significant talent gaps in the engineering field. I'm your co-host, Rachel Holland.
I'm your host, Matt Picardle. And before we get started, here's a quick word from our sponsor for this episode, PPI, a Kaplan company.
PPI provides expert prep courses and study resources designed to help you pass the FE and PE exams the first time. PPI's live online courses include hours of lectures, problem-solving demonstrations, exam strategy sessions, office hours, and a passing guarantee. Check out PPI today at ppi2pass.com to see all the options available for FE and PE exam prep. Now let's dive into today's episode.
Bill, thanks so much for hopping on. Can you tell us by starting a little bit about yourself and what your career journey is?
Sure. I grew up in Queens, New York, and went to the United States Merchant Marine Academy for an undergraduate degree in engineering, basically mechanical marine. And then I graduated with the degree in engineering, a licensed engineering degree for steam or diesel motor vessels, and a commission in the Navy Reserve as a ensign. So it was an unusual school. It's one of the federal academies like West Point or Annapolis. Decided I'd like to get into more depth in engineering, so I went to Northwestern to get a master's degree in sort of an environmental chemical hybrid program. And then I went to work for Union Carbide. It was a powerhouse chemical company in the day. This was in the 1974-75 time period, and slowly got whittled down with a number of things that happened. Ended up Dow Chemical bought them out. But it was a wonderful place for an engineer to work. It was an engineering-driven company, and I worked on a solid waste to energy conversion project, which was quite interesting and way ahead of its time. Think about doing that in the 70s. They're still working on it today. And then I left Union Carbide and I went to a consulting firm called McKinsey & Company, management consulting firm, based in Houston, and I did that for 4 years. And then I was recruited to GE, where I was the head of strategic planning and business development for the lighting business in Cleveland, Ohio. Then I moved into marketing and product management. Then I was sent to Europe, and I ran the lighting business for 2 years in Europe, did 2 acquisitions. One was a real exciting experience. We were buying a company called Tungsram. It's the Hungarian word for tungsten. And what was exciting about it is the wall was still up. It was still communist. So we were dealing with the CIA. We were dealing with Ambassador Palmer, using his safe phone to call. It's chairman and CEO of GE. A lot of intrigue, a lot of things happening, brand new experience. And it was the largest deal ever done in the East Bloc. So that was an exciting part of my career. Then I came back to become a vice president in charge of global product management and distribution. And a couple of countries also were reporting to me: Canada, Japan, Mexico. And then I left and went to GE Plastics, where I ran a materials business called the Industrial Diamond business, and ultimately left GE as the CEO of the infrastructure business. And I retired early, a couple of years early, and I started with a private equity group, brand new startup, Global Infrastructure Partners. So I had the experience in the infrastructure operations end of things, which fit nicely with the investment banking partners that were in the private equity space or investment banking space. And we grew it over the last 18 years and ended up having some great success, a little bit of luck and a little bit of hard work, and it all mixed together quite nicely. And we grew it to be over $100 billion in assets under management. We had ownership of airports, power plants, pipelines, renewable energy, solar and wind. We had a strong position in the UK, Europe, and initially in the US, and then expanded into Asia. So we grew it quite nicely. And then it just recently, we reached an agreement to sell the business to BlackRock here in the United States. And the transaction should close in September. So I've had a really fun, exciting time with engineering at the core of how I thought and the way I approached running these different businesses.
Sounds like you've had a pretty colorful career, so that's definitely nice to hear. What initially inspires you to actually get into the field of engineering?
I was a pretty good student in math and science, so I felt I wanted to do something that was analytical, but I didn't grow up in an environment where there were any engineers. No one in my family went to college or in my extended family, so this was a different way of thinking. And I felt if I was good in math and science, that probably would be a good selection. But I must say, having a mentor or some advice would have been really beneficial, because it was pretty lucky that I ended up doing it, and I ended up loving it. And I think when you love something, you do pretty well at it. So it was right for me, but it happened just by luck. There was no real plan or no real understanding. I think what spurred me on was I really loved chemistry and physics, and I was pretty good in math. And a couple of experiments that we did in the physics lab that I really loved was kind of predicting outcomes for one thing was sort of looking at heat and the amount of heat required to evaporate water and doing the calculations of what it should be, and then actually measuring the actual heat that we applied and getting within a couple of percent. I thought, wow, you can really predict things. That's what all this math and science is about. And that turned me on.
Yeah, I think the science aspect and then the practical engineering aspect of it, that for me, that was similar. It was like, I'm learning math, sure, it's okay. But then it was, this is why we're learning math. We're actually affecting the world in some way.
It gives you a purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Bill, you have such an amazing career globally too. And after going through all of that, all the professional experiences, what made you want to create Engineering Tomorrow?
Some of it was reflecting on the fact that it was luck. And I thought students that are underserved or underprivileged would benefit from getting exposure to engineering principles and the field of engineering by teaching them in high school. So I felt, after talking to some college freshmen at Northwestern Engineering School, what grades did they think were the most important for their decision to study engineering versus something else. We kind of homed in on between 9th grade and 11th grade. So I felt that was appropriate. I also felt I wanted to have enough meat in the programs that there would be some calculus and some math and some science required. And it wouldn't be appropriate to reach into middle school. So I kind of homed in on those high school years as where I wanted to contribute. And I felt if I could get 10% of the kids that I exchanged ideas with and taught to study engineering, that would be a heroic result. And I felt that that would be a nice way to give back, because I had a lucky and fortunate career.
So I have some more questions. I want to pick your brain about Engineering Tomorrow, but just for our listeners that maybe aren't aware of it yet, can you just sort of give a little bit of background on like what that is and what you do? Yeah.
Engineering Tomorrow is a program focused on high school students where we have developed 22 different labs ranging from aerospace engineering to wastewater treatment engineering aspects, and everything in between: biomedical, civil, mechanical, industrial, EE, computer science. And we picked these 22 labs because we wanted them to be really exciting for students to have an experiment, to build a kit, to build a particular product. And the whole idea was to connect the dots on math and science and the actual application of using their hands to make something. We do a bridge building and design, and then we stress it and see which bridge lasts longer before it fails. And we'll have a competition in the classroom between different groups. So we try and make it good fun and exciting, in the hopes that, like me, when I was a student, if something connects the dots of, oh, that's what this math and science is used for. That's pretty cool. I think I'd like to do that as a career. And we started out, myself and another fellow that I work with, PhD chemical engineer, teaching a dozen kids. And there's no scale. We weren't able to really reach enough and make an impact in society. And I felt that impact is important because the future of our country is going to be dependent on technical capability, product innovation, design, engineering features will be critical to society. And we need more engineers and we need more technical people, in my opinion. So I felt I needed to find more scale. And surprisingly, COVID did that for us. It shut down all the schools. And we were thinking hard about how can we reach these kids now that they're not in school. So we sent them kits at home and then put them on a Zoom call and then walked them through the basis and the fundamentals of the engineering of the particular kit, first principles, and then helped them with the kit, and then had a session to review with them how the design came out, could they have done differently, how should they have thought about certain things that they might have missed. And we realized, boy, this is a lot more attractive than busing kids to a central lab or trying to find a way to have 4 or 5 schools meet in one central hub, especially in urban areas where there's traffic, buses are breaking down, school schedules shift, and all of a sudden they're late leaving, and then they get later in traffic, and other students are waiting a half hour for the final class to show up so we can start the program. Doing it digitally changed everything. To give you a feel for the numbers, we were doing 2,000 to 3,000 students per year in the, let me call it real-time face-to-face, with busing to a central high school and then doing the class and then busing them back home or back to their school. We moved quickly to the last academic year, 128,000 students. So we did this colossal jump. And this academic year, which is ending in a few weeks in June, we're set to achieve 600,000 students. So now we're getting reach. The other thing I'm pleased to say is that the national average of students entering college, only 7% study engineering. Those students who go through our program from basically freshman, sophomore, all the way through high school years, 24% apply to engineering schools. So we're looking at a triple. So my 10% wish was greatly exceeded. And this new academic year, starting in September, we could easily do 2 million students. But the budget and the cost to do that is going to constrain us back to probably doing 1.2 million. Still a colossal result from those early days of teaching 12 kids to then doing a couple of thousand. Now we've become really critical mass. And a lot of it is social media, word of mouth amongst the STEM teachers about the quality of the program. And it's for free. And we do all the work. We do the lessons plans. We do the teaching. So the STEM teacher really only needs to receive the kits in the mail and then arrange the students in the classroom with the kits, and we do everything else.
And is it the teachers that seek you out, or do you work specifically with certain schools, or how do they even get involved in your program? We
had a program where they would give us other teachers that they knew in the STEM field in other high schools that they would refer us to. We had word of mouth of the quality of the program spreading. And with social media, there was so much interaction between STEM teachers amongst themselves, sharing the fact that they really loved what we were doing. So I would say it's a combination of critical mass. After COVID, we had enough activity that people were talking about us in social media, in STEM, and that was a huge help. And it's gone viral, to use the term that probably makes the most sense. So now we have huge growth. I mean, just think about it. Not too long ago, we were doing 3,000, and now we're heading into the million territory. Pretty amazing.
That's incredible. Okay, thank you for giving a little bit of background on that. What about, I know you had said for you, a lot of you getting into engineering just sort of ended up being luck based on what was, your situation. What do you think are the most significant gaps that are present in engineering, and how is Engineering Tomorrow addressing those gaps?
At the high school level, the gaps are related to there are no engineers that are teaching at high school. There are no practical applications that are engineering based and engineering driven that the students can see, oh, this is what I can do with this physics learning, or this is what I can do with a chemistry understanding. And this is how calculus is used in the real world to solve a problem like putting a capsule in orbit, space. So it's the real world application of the math and science you learn in high school to problem solving that you would use as an engineer. And I think that's the fundamental thing that we do differently than a classic math teacher or a classic science teacher. Many STEM teachers will tell us, we can't do what you do. And the interesting thing, Rachel, is most of these curriculums were developed with our guidance, but using summer interns from various universities and colleges, engineering universities and colleges in the United States. Notre Dame is a big one because we had so many students in the Diocese of New York who went through our program that went on to Notre Dame. The Catholic program there, Catholic school program is big in their recruitment, and that was a big boost to us. So a lot of this really terrific curriculum was designed by engineering students that had also felt the need for practicality and hands-on. I think that's a big need.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the school I chose to go to, it's like their whole motto is learn by doing, but it's like, it's the same thing, it's like a hands-on experience, it really changes. For some people, it's a really, really great way to learn. How about, Bill, how did your various roles at GE and your experiences in all the companies prepare you for designing and building Engineering Tomorrow?
I think a couple of things. One is I felt that all the experiences I had was a great way of making Engineering Tomorrow relevant and easy to understand and practical. Because when you're running a business, you don't have time to get into the subtleties of engineering details. You end up having to organize and have design engineers work on that level of detail. So all these jobs forced me to be more strategic and to think at a higher level. A lot more time spent on designing a capital budget to optimize new product development or to optimize service improvement. Thinking hard about the competition and how can you benchmark and get better using insights that you can gain from competitors and people in similar industries or companies in similar industries, maybe not the exact same.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it gave me a real sense of how to spend time wisely, how to stay focused on the right strategic issues and not get bogged down in too much detail. And that helped me because a lot of my friends that retire and want to give back, they do it with their own time. There's only so many hours a day that one person can do. I felt I had skills in organizing and creating teams and large groups of people that were effectively deployed to get things of substance and scale completed. And I felt I already used that background, and I like using that background. I feel like I'm better orchestrating a large team and building a large team than I am just being an individual contributor. So I think all of that experience helped me to have, number one, the confidence to think about creating my own charity rather than just donating just my time, and then helping me and recruit the right kinds of people to execute. And having run large businesses and interviewed a lot of people and hired and fired people, I think I had a good idea of the talent that I needed and the skill set and the demeanor. A lot of times in teaching engineering, you need empathy more than you need technical savviness. because a lot of it is first principles and it's high school level. So I needed somebody that was relatable to the students, somebody that looked like them, and people that are comfortable not getting into too much detail, but enough to whet the appetite.
Yeah, it's funny. You compared yourself to your friends who are just doing like an individual contributor style of giving back in their retirement. And I'm going to go ahead and say, I think you took on another career.
Well, my wife would say that.
Yeah, I don't know that I would say that you're retired.
Yeah, no, it's been fun though, and I did until recently. I'm just now phasing out of my role in my old firm. But for the first 10 years, 9 of the 10 years, I was working full time doing this. So I was busy, but I loved it. So it didn't seem hard. It just seemed like fun.
Right. What do you think are the most significant barriers to entering the engineering field today? And how are you seeing, like, how do you think they can be overcome? Are you seeing the students that you're working with overcoming those challenges?
Yeah, I think so. I think one of the things that engineering schools are now doing more of is multidiscipline teaming. Most complex problems are not going to be solved with just mechanical engineering skills or just structural engineering skills. A lot of these problems are vast, complex, that need multidisciplinary capability. So I think a broad exposure to the various forms of engineering, working with other types of engineers in industry, on teams, all of that is critical to solving big problems. And I think the colleges and the engineering schools are starting to see that. Some of them are quite far advanced. I mentioned Northwestern University. The dean there, Julio Otino, who's just retired, was magnificent at interdisciplinary programming. And he involved the music school in some of the work that they were doing. He involved the liberal arts, the law school, business school in some instances. And what he was trying to do is he was trying to teach engineers the fact that in solving some of these problems, there's social issues, there's economic issues, there's technical issues that vary from, maybe it's biochemical, maybe it's mechanical at times. That's the real world. That's the nature of teams solving problems. And I think we need to have more of that in the technical programs that we have in the United States. The other thing I'd say is getting engineers exposed to communications, leadership, understanding the role of a leader, broadening engineers so that they think not just in technical bits and bytes, but more broadly, is very important, because I think engineers can be marvelous business leaders with that problem-solving background and the ability to orchestrate things. But when they fail, it's because they get too close to it and they don't see the forest through the trees. So the education needs to have some electives and some programs that are not perhaps engineering, but are more about the kinds of tools you need as leaders.
Yeah, that's really, I agree with that a lot. What do you find is the most meaningful impact that Engineering Tomorrow has had on the students that you're working with and also the teachers?
I think the teachers love it because they see the curriculum as something they could never achieve on their own, and they don't see it available in the STEM field. They love the fact it's free. You know, when we thought about how do you get teachers excited about this, the last thing you want to give a teacher is the task to go to the principal and ask for money. It's just like a death note. The other thing is it's no incremental work. So if you have the formula of it's free, no incremental work, and the curriculum is outstanding, that's a home run. And that's why I think we've gone viral. Those three things have come together with critical mass probably 2 years ago, and we're just now enjoying the fruits of all of that. So I would say that's one of the most important factors.
I think, I can't imagine a teacher just not loving bringing your curriculum into their classroom. It seems, like you said, it seems like a no-brainer.
Very few criticisms. Usually it's something that more relates to the microphone not working or the Zoom didn't start when planned. The actual curriculum and the response of the kids has always been outstanding.
Yeah.
Some of these classes have skyrocketed. We just did electric car design, and we do twice a month. We do a national program, which means schools can sign up from any state. And we just completed it. It was 54,000 kids on one Zoom call. It's just incredible. And because it's hands-on and they're doing it and they're seeing other kids doing it, it seems very interactive to them. It doesn't seem cut dry and sort of boring, even though it is Zoom. The action of building the kit out is really exciting, and they do it in a cluster of 3 people usually. So it's team dynamics, which is very important. It's a fun project, which is capturing their hearts and minds. And then they have the Zoom engineer, professional engineer, talking to them about how to approach it, how to think differently, what did they learn from it, what could they have done differently. It's pretty unusual stuff.
Yeah.
What are some of the most popular classes?
Electric car design is very popular. Water reuse is popular. We have a lot of kids interested in, we do a space lab. A lot of kids are interested in that. Machine learning. We have a catapult design with a ping pong ball, and they set the metrics on angle of attack, tension on the rubber band, swing distance, and they triangulate using math, statistical correlations, based on shooting the ping pong ball and seeing where it lands and jotting down the metrics on the variables. And then we take a bowl, like a bowl of soup without the soup in it, and we move it to a position that's very different than where they had been practicing. And they see the statistical analysis gives them the setting. And I would say 60% of the time the ping pong ball lands in the bowl. It may not stay because it bounces out, but it lands in the bowl.
Yeah.
And the kids are amazed that, and this is machine learning. This is statistical analysis of a machine in operation, very briefly, in an hour and a half lab. They can see, you can take that math and that experience in just an hour and a half and project what the parameters have to be for launching to get to a different distance. So those are the ones that are quite popular. I teach one on biomedical engineering, which is popular, and it's solving a skin disorder. And then I walk them through getting the patent for the solution, and then talk a lot about what other diseases could be affected by this treatment mechanism, which activates T cells in your body, a type of immune system, white blood cell. So those are the classes that are really popular. We refresh the curriculum, and as one fades, we'll think of another one. And frequently we're moving in and out as we optimize.
So interesting. I can't, like, when you're walking through those labs, I'm like, oh, if I had done those as a high school student, I wonder if I would have picked the same engineering,
right?
You know, like if I was exposed to a different kind.
Yeah, sometimes people will ask me if you could do it over again, what would you do? I think I would do biomechanical engineering.
Yeah. Yeah. What about, can you elaborate on the impact that Engineering Tomorrow is having? And then also, if our listeners are interested in getting involved, like, how could they do that?
Well, the impact is really good. I wasn't expecting it. I think I said 7% of the kids that go into undergrad school study engineering, and the students that go through our program is 24%. So we're really getting traction. I think we're really getting a lot of enthusiasm. We don't yet know what percent actually graduate with a 4-year degree. We're starting to collect that data, which is hard to get. And we're just getting to the maturity level where we can start to do that. So I think that the impact is really great. I'll also tell you that the impact on Black and Hispanic students has been phenomenal. They're 17% of the undergrad engineering freshman year students that go through our program, Engineering Tomorrow. 39% of the Black and Hispanic students that go through our program apply for engineering schools undergrad. That's a huge difference. So I think when you say what's the impact, I think we're reaching a lot of minorities and getting more diversity into the field. We've moved the needle on females, but nowhere near as much as doubling or tripling like we did with Hispanic men and African Americans men. But that will come, I think, as we devise more programs that will be more attractive to female population. Females are 51% of the undergrad applications for college. There's no reason why they should be at 19% of the engineering students. It should be a much higher percentage.
How could our listeners get involved?
Well, we have this so fine-tuned. Our cost to reach a student with this program that we've devised is $15 per student. So you could send, for $100, you could send a student to 3 years of going to Engineering Tomorrow sessions, 2 sessions a year, which is an incredible bargain when you think about, for $100, you might change this person's life and give them a career chance that they otherwise wouldn't even think of. So I think the thing we're doing is we're moving the needle to give these underprivileged kids a shot at getting out of the underprivileged environment, to have a career, to have an opportunity to contribute in a meaningful way in a fun, exciting profession. So I think that's important.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think we'll provide the links to the website if professionals or students want to learn more. And those donations go a lot. Like you were saying, and like what me and Rachel were saying, if we had those classes when we were undergrad, because it was so hard to decide what to do when you're trying to do a career. And then for me, it clicked when I could link it up to something. But that was much later in my college career. But like if we had that in high school, might have been easier. Yeah, I'm going to go get a career in engineering.
But one thing I tell people to answer your question about how could they help, it's not necessarily teaching for Engineering Tomorrow. It's really mentoring students that are in high school and shedding light on the fascinating career of an engineer, your own career, sharing it, talking about it, and reaching out to cousins and nieces, others that may be a lot younger and not have the benefit of your wisdom of having figured it out and studied what you studied. Sharing that and talking about what engineers do can go a long way. I think this is the time for engineers. When you think about all that's happening in the world on climate change, energy transition, molecular biology, biochemistry, the CRISPR, and the things that have happened with designing medicines for your genetic code, thinking about water reuse and water conservation, resource management. All those things are big global problems that will get more intense over time. Engineers are at the heart of that. And I think teaching the young kids what engineers do and the fact we're at the heart of all of these things. In the end, engineers will take scientific developments and will make them economic, will make them practical, and will make them reliable. So we're touching everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, so important. It's using social media too, like you were saying. I mean, we're in the background a lot of the times, but it's important to, instead of just being in the background, to advertise it once in a while, maybe on social media or sharing it with your nieces and nephews, because they need to know that stuff. That's what they need. They need to learn about what we do.
Yeah.
And be exposed.
Yeah.
Just be exposed to it. Yeah. What about, as a final question, Bill, what advice would you give to new engineers starting out in their careers? And also, since your career path was just really, like, you had such an amazing career path, I'd also like to see what your advice is to more senior engineers that are maybe stepping into leadership roles.
Well, I think for the young engineer, I was convinced as I was interviewing, as I exited Northwestern with a master's degree, I wasn't hung up on where I was going to live. I was hung up on where would I learn the most? What was going to be the most exciting, intellectually stimulating job? And of all places, I moved to Buffalo, New York, so you could tell I was not location intensive. It was a tough place to live. But I joined a company where engineering was at the heart of everything they did. I then did something very unusual. I switched from mechanical environmental to the chemical engineering section, and I absolutely loved it. I learned so much. It was like getting another degree. And I think in the beginning, I was deficient in skills, but my enthusiasm more than offset that. And then my deficiency became less and less. And I really started to become a really fluent process engineer. And I was so much better for it. It built my confidence. It built my ability to recognize I can learn a whole lot more. I don't have to be channeled in one discipline. And I think that's a really important thing to happen to you when you're young, because it opens up your horizons. You feel the flexibility to do other things. You don't have to fit yourself in a box. You can be free. For older engineers, I would say the ability to think broadly and involve a broad team, a team of diverse talent to solve problems is really important. You don't want to get so narrow and so funneled that you're just thinking about structural engineering and plane design. You want to think about whole plane, and you want to have on your team multidiscipline skills. So you might want double E's, structural people, aerodynamicists, mechanical engineers, etc. And I found the bosses I really liked, the people that I was working for, were the ones that had a broad perspective, because they get you involved in more things to solve, more problems of interest than the narrow, tightly defined approach of, say, the 50s or the 60s or even the 70s. And I think it's good for engineering because people are figuring that out. If you look at the breakthrough with CRISPR and dealing with medicine tailored to your genetic code, when you read Jennifer Doudna's book, I think her brilliance was she had all these PhD scientists of various backgrounds involved: chemists, biochemists, combinatorial biologists, chemical engineers. She wasn't just dealing with genetics and the typical science medical doctor discipline. She really opened it up and started to think about broadening the skill level they could bring to solve the problem of breaking the code. And it's a fascinating book, and it's a fascinating, I think, testimony to Jennifer that she could think that broadly in a world that was, up until that point, very confined to biologists and chemists. And all of a sudden, she's got breakthrough ideas by involving people with other disciplines. So I'd say for the older managerial types, think broadly, use other disciplines, attack problems creatively. And it's more fun.
Yeah, I think that's great advice.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Thanks so much for coming on and sharing your amazing career journey and the amazing things that you're doing to help engineering students and the future of engineering with Engineering Tomorrow. So really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great.
Thank you. I enjoyed meeting both of you.
I hope you enjoyed the episode today. We'd love to hear your feedback, comments, and/or questions. To leave them, please visit structuralengineeringchannel.com. There, you'll find a summary of the key points discussed in today's episode, as well as links to any of the resources or websites mentioned during this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Until next time, we wish you the best in all of your structural engineering endeavors.